Welcome to the Steve Stine Guitar Podcast, where we bring you the latest insights, tips, and techniques to help you master the art of guitar playing. I'm your host, Steve Stine, and I'm committed to sharing my passion for the guitar while inspiring you and guiding you through your musical journey. Now remember that you can enjoy this podcast from anywhere and anytime, whether you're cruising down the highway, preparing dinner in the kitchen, or even working out at the gym. By incorporating the podcast into your daily routine, you'll be able to stay inspired and motivated in your guitar journey, no matter where life takes you. Now, let's dive into today's podcast. Hey everybody, Steve Stine from GuitarZoom here. Thank you so much for joining me. Today I'm going to be talking to a gentleman by the name of Eric Beaty. Now, Eric is a guitar player. He's a friend of mine. He's been playing guitar for a long time. He's got guitar courses. He's got books on Amazon. But he's also got a really great story of how he started learning how to play guitar, played in the church, and how all of that impacted the choices that he would make in terms of the musical things that he would do in his life. Eric now is one of the instructors at GuitarZoom, part of our GuitarZoom Academy. If you've never heard of that, you should certainly check that out. And so let's go ahead and get started with the interview. Hey, Eric, how you doing, buddy?
Doing great, Steve. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm glad you're here. This is going to be fun to talk to you about some stuff here. So for those of you that don't know Eric, I've known Eric for a long time. What was the guitar course that you did a long time ago? It was a Texas blues thing something like that.
It was Texas blues guitar.
Yeah.
It was a really fun experiment that Dan chose me for. He saw me on YouTube and asked me to come out and do a course on blues. And I went out to Memphis and recorded like 13 hours of footage in like 2 days. And he was able to somehow condense that down to like 10 DVDs. Even then, there would have been a bunch left over. But the worst part about it was the fact that I had a rental car. And let me just give you some advice here. Never get a rental car that the cruise control doesn't work. Because you will be in cramps with your legs the whole way there. I'm telling you. I regretted doing that. It was a 4-hour drive, and 2 of it was just straight. All you could see was just straight, no trees, no nothing. And that's all the way,
my foot was. To be honest with you, that's North Dakota.
Goodness.
We have nothing out here.
It was rough. I enjoyed it, had a good time with Dan, but man, I'll never do that again with a car that doesn't have cruise control on it. Learned my lesson.
That's great. Yeah, I remember that. I remember that course. It was a long course. You put a lot of work into that. That was cool.
Oh, yeah.
So anyway, of course, Eric is back full circle now. He's one of the Academy teachers here at GuitarZoom, which is really great. I'm glad that you're here.
Glad to be here.
We talked about doing this Academy thing. You know, it's always kind of nerve-wracking to release the reins to people that may not know what they're doing. And I trust you wholeheartedly. And so it's been awesome having you aboard. So that's great. So I thought what would be kind of fun is just letting people know a little bit about your background, you know, what kind of music you like, what music you play. Let's start all the way back. Can you just give me kind of a background of when did you first start playing guitar? When did you first start learning, you know, even being introduced to the idea of guitar and getting excited about playing guitar?
Okay. Well, early on, when I was starting to become a teenager, about 13 years of age, way long ago and far away now, my dad at that time was pastoring a church, and there was a lot of music going on in the church, you know, on the lines of piano.
Sure.
And I really wanted to be a part of that. I wanted to get up and you know, do something and contribute somehow. And I thought, well, I want to be able to play an instrument somehow, but piano just didn't really seem interesting to me, so I wanted to play guitar. And I remember it like it was yesterday. My grandma at the time on my dad's side, we used to get these, I don't know if you're familiar with the Harriet Carter catalogs and the little catalogs that come in the mail with all these different things you can order.
Yeah.
Well, I was flipping through there one day because I just like to look at the pictures, see what all interesting stuff they had when I was a kid. And they had this 2 VHS, back when, you know, VHS was a thing.
Right.
2 VHS course on how to play guitar. And I remember one cassette was a red box and one cassette was a blue box, and it was more of an advanced, and then there was a beginner. And I remember begging my grandma at that time to get that for me for Christmas, and she did. And so I spent hours just watching these things over and over. I'm self-taught other than, you know, watching videos. I've never had, you know, an instructor or anything like that.
Sure.
But I remember I was so impatient with it because a lot of it was reading music notation so that you could play a melody. And I was not interested in that. I wanted to learn to play now. So I learned, I cheated. I flipped all the way to the back where all the chords were and started learning chords.
Sure.
And man, I remember how bad the calluses and how tender my fingers were and everything, but I kept at it, kept working at it, and learned all the chords. And somehow I had a natural proclivity for rhythm. I could feel the rhythm pretty good. And I've always had a good ear. I've learned everything I know about ear. And it's weird because nobody really in my family is musically talented or musically inclined. It's just something I decided I wanted to do. Mm-hmm. And so that's how I started learning guitar. Was I just took little bits and pieces for what worked for me and then went from there. And that's been 30 years ago this year, I think. 30 years that I've been playing.
Sure. Yeah. So once you started playing, what was some early stuff, like early bands or like songs that you were trying to figure out or that sort of thing?
Well, I was interested, being in church and everything. Obviously, you want to learn hymnals and things like that. So I was interested in that. But I quickly got interested in bluegrass gospel. And that became my first love, really, so to speak. And I learned I would play along with cassettes and learn to try to play along with them. And then by the time I got to where I could pick a little bit, I would try to pick along with them, play little solos and things like that. But I remember very vividly, I was the official lawnmower at the house. So I would push mow the whole lawn, once a week.
Yep.
And I hated that with a passion. So I remember I had this Sony Walkman cassette player, and I would listen to pass the time. I would listen to music. So I got Ricky Skaggs when he started Kentucky Thunder back in '97. The first album they came out with was called Bluegrass Rules, and it had a guitarist on there named Brian Sutton. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him or not, but Brian Sutton is an amazing flat picker. And I knew about him before I knew about Tony Rice or any of his influences. And so I would listen to that, that cassette over and over. Every time I mowed, I would put that thing in and listen to it. And I really got inspired to play bluegrass gospel. And so that was what I, really strived for years. The first time I got into electric guitar was about 2001, I think, when I first got my first electric guitar, somewhere around there. And I really got interested in Stevie Ray Vaughan, Eric Clapton. I remember I had the tabs for Tears in Heaven, and so it took forever. And that's a pretty difficult song, believe it or not. So I started learning that one. Then my brother was interested in it, so I started teaching him guitar. So I was basically his guitar teacher. Now he plays guitar. But yeah, people like Stevie Ray Vaughan flipping that guitar behind his back and playing and totally mesmerized me. So I was into the blues and Kenny Wayne Shepherd and blues rock, and that's where Texas blues guitar came from. That course. But yeah, I'm a bluegrass at heart, and I also love shred and blues.
Sure.
Almost as equally.
That's great. So then when you were growing up and playing, did you play in bands and things like that then too?
Well, my family, it's me, my sister, and my two stepbrothers. We've been together since 95, so about 2 years after I started playing guitar. Okay. 2 or 3 years. And we started a little group together called the Heavenly Travelers. It took us forever to figure out a name, but that's what we came up with. And I don't know where it is, but I've got the original cassette. We actually cut an album together. Okay. And I've got an original cassette picture somewhere of all of us where we took our picture for the album cover. And man, you talk about nerdy, because this was in the 90s. I had these big glasses, I'm telling you, I'm embarrassed to look at it, but we were all, that style back then. But we cut our first album of what we call special songs. There's hymns that you get in the church book, and then there's what you call special songs, which are not found in the church book, but you hear them like on the radio or Southern gospel people or whatever they'll sing. And so we accumulated all these songs, and we would be asked eventually to go around different churches singing as a little family group, of kids. Gotcha. And so we still sing together. I was telling you earlier before we got on that, of an upcoming church function we got to go sing at later on this month. So we're still together. We've branched out a little bit and got involved in other groups. I remember my first band was about, like I said, 2001, maybe 2002. My brother and I were in a contemporary Christian group. He had become friends with a drummer and also a bass player that knew each other. And so from there, we formed a group called Foglight, which was Flames of God living in greatness, holiness, and truth. And that's what Fog Light stood for.
Gotcha.
And so we still have the demo. I've still got the demo recordings of where we tried to make an album of some of the songs that I wrote and some of the regular songs.
Right.
And so a lot of good memories from doing stuff like that together with a lot of family members.
Right. Well, that's awesome. And then you've got your own album that you've released too, right? Hey, if you could, do me a huge favor. Like, share, and subscribe to this channel. And also, do me a huge favor. Head over to GuitarZoom.com and check out our courses and our all-access membership.
Yes, I released it about a year ago.
Okay.
It's called Revival in the Air. It's just after going to so many churches and singing all of my life, pretty much, with us together, sometimes we couldn't all be together. And when we started kind of branching apart and having our own lives, we would just sing as we could individually. Mm-hmm. And people kept asking me if I had any music of just me singing, and I didn't. Even though I've written probably over 100 songs easily, instrumentals and lyrical, together, I just never sat down and did anything. One day I decided to get me a DAW, a digital audio workstation, found one, and started working with it, and I still use it to this day. It's called Traction Waveform.
Okay.
And just started recording. And it was interesting because it only took like a week to record. I picked the songs out that I'd written. I know what I wanted, and it took about a week to record. I didn't have any bass. I wanted it to be like more of an intimate album. Kind of like my inspiration was Tony Rice's Church Street Blues album, where it was just him and a guitar. And maybe another guitar doing rhythm, or just him with a little bit of reverb, just an intimate setting, almost like a one-on-one concert type thing. And so there's no bass, but it's just me and guitars and me singing harmony and doing all the guitar work. And it didn't take long to record. Like I said, it was about a week. But then I wanted to get it out there. I didn't know how. So I had to learn how to do all the mixing by myself. Well, I had looked at all these mixing courses. I was fortunate enough to win lifetime access to Graham Cochran. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he's
I am.
Recording Revolution. I've won lifetime access to all of his mixing courses. So I started with him, started with Joe Gilder, another good friend of his from Home Studio Corner. Learned everything I could from those guys, and then slowly started mixing my own music. And it took me about closer to 5 years to finally get it to where I wanted it so I could release it.
Sure.
And it took a long time, and now I'm at the point, there's things that I'm so much of a perfectionist. I've been working on a solo for the longest, and it's only a minute long. It's just enough to be a solo. The recording is easy, but going back and being perfectionist and trying to tweak everything with the mix, I'm at the point now I just want to hire somebody and say, I want to play it, record it, and you do the rest, because I tweak too much.
Yeah.
But that's my debut album, and I've got enough songs. I could do another album. I've already got 2 or 3 picked out that I want to put on it.
Sure.
But right now I'm trying to get another studio outside. We moved where we're at now a couple years ago, and just little by little I've been putting the studio outside together. It's a shed, but we just got electricity put in, but now we're going to put in the foam and all that other stuff, and it just takes a while before I can move everything out to that.
Yeah.
I'm assuming my next album, if we don't hurry up and get that done, will probably be done here in this basement studio, but that's fine because the other one was done in a room studio anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's the beautiful thing is that you can do all of this stuff nowadays. You can do it in, with a set of headphones, you can be anywhere. You could be in a hotel somewhere and you could still be doing it, which is great. Cool. So when you, with your guitar playing and you're singing, do you practice on a daily basis? Like what does your practice schedule look like? Or do you not really practice much or?
Well, lately I've been practicing as daily as I can. Trying to as daily as I can because I've been getting a little bit more serious about some of my playing and learning other songs by an artist that I'm really into right now and I've been into since 2018. And I think we talked about him before, Norcos Fogi. He's amazing. And I've been learning some of his songs, and they are kicking me in the tail left and right. I mean, those licks are ridiculously hard. So I've been practicing and honing in on those. As far as what I usually do, what I used to do, for me, it was mostly acoustic, and I sing with a group now called the Gilbert Family out of Sparta, Tennessee. And we used to have almost weekly practice sessions. So that would be my practice. And I'm fine with bluegrass. I'm more honed to that than I am a lot of the shred stuff. I got to really keep the maintenance going on that.
Sure.
But for as far as a practice schedule, if we play in a lot, then we either practice that week, and that acts as a practice, and the actual gig itself acts for me as a practice.
Right.
And, you know, I get to warm up and be fine. And if I need to kind of brush up on some things, I can practice on my own time once or twice. They'll give me the set list, and I'll kind of go over some of the intros or whatever, because it's basically me, a bass player, and another vocalist.
Sure.
And so basically I have to do all the fills, I have to do all the rhythm, all the lead, and all that. So I've got like 3 guitar parts in one, so I've got to be on my toes for that. With electric guitar, it's more sit down and really focus in on a certain area. Like right now, I've been working on just one lick of the song I've been working on for Marcos Foley, and it's this big sweep lick, and I'm not used to sweeping, especially these long stretches he does.
Sure.
And so I've been working on that for the last 3-4 weeks, just grinding away at it. And finally, it's starting to come together. It's starting to feel better, and that just gets me pumped. That gets me excited to get even more done and learn even more, because I see that and I'm like, I can do this, and there's things that I thought I could never do, and it's happening. And it's just a result of chipping away at it, getting your reps in.
Yeah.
And you can do some of the things that you put your mind to if you just sit down and do the work and be. The word that's been on my mind, and everywhere I go, Steve, I see it, is consistency.
Mm-hmm.
Be consistent.
Yep.
I watched an interview with John Petrucci, and one of my questions to him, because it was like an open question thing, and I asked a question about how does he practice, how do you get better at the guitar and all this stuff. Because it was frustrating trying to learn some of this stuff from Marco, and he plays a lot like Petrucci does. And he said the main word that he could come up with was consistency. And since he said that, I'm seeing the word consistency everywhere I go. It's on, it'll be on billboards, it'll be in a book, somebody will say it, and I'm like, okay, I need to be keeping notes here, because that's apparently for me.
Right. That's true. I mean, I always tell people that you need to practice on the days that you eat. So that's...
Yeah. That's the truth.
And the thing is that's exactly it. Is it doesn't really matter what it is that you want to do, whether you want to exercise or you want to write a book, which we're going to get to in a minute here too. But you got to be consistent with it, and you have to do it. Again, it's not that you can always do everything every day, but like what I was trying to explain, especially to students that maybe have just been, just started playing, is you gotta consider yourself a guitar player. Like you can't consider yourself someone who's going to play guitar. Today you're a guitar player. And so for the rest of your life, you're going to be a guitar player. So if you want to be a guitar player, you have to do it as much as you can. If it's 5 minutes in the morning and 5 minutes in the afternoon, or 10 minutes in the morning and 5 minutes in the afternoon, or whatever you can do, because like you, it's the same thing. Like I am obsessed with playing. There's not a day that goes by that I don't play guitar. If I travel with a guitar. If I fly, I fly with a guitar. If I'm going overseas, I already know where the guitar store is going to be, so I can go there, because I love to play. It's the same thing you just said about being motivated. I love to be motivated. And if I fall out of that for a couple, 3 days, it's very easy to lose that motivation. Where if I stay in the game, whether it's performance, because that's another thing too that's really important, is for people out there that are learning how to play, there's the practice of trying to develop your skills. And then there's the practice of what you understand and how you visualize things in your head. But then there's the performance aspect of learning how to play with other human beings. And, it sounds like you've been doing that since you were a little kid. So, there's something really special about that too. So tell me about, because you had mentioned that you've got a book as well, or a series of books, I think you even have on Amazon. What is that?
Let me just show it to you. So back in 2016-17, I did a video, and I was into goal setting and time management and stuff like that, and still am. I'm a big geek about that. And I decided to make this video into a book. Well, the book ended up becoming 3 books.
Okay.
And so that is what I call Smart Focus. Smart Focus Series 1, 2, and 3. And these are on Kindle and paperback. But these are all about some things that I actually did. There's pictures in here of pieces of paper that I took my SMART goals on. And I would actually, every quarter, I would go back and update so that I would be, once again, consistent with all these goals. And that's what a lot of that is. These are based on is my personal achieving some goals, like creating my own course. Dan's course inspired me to create my own course on bluegrass.
Sure.
So these show my journey of creating my own bluegrass course, and some different tools and things that I came up with on how to delegate some of your projects to virtual assistants. I had some virtual assistants to do the video editing and the graphic design and different things like that for some of my products, based on a lot of stuff that Dan did on his product.
Sure.
And so
Dan being Dan Denley. So
Dan Denley, yes, the founder and owner of GuitarZoom. Sorry about
correct.
that. But so a lot of him and what he did with me and how we worked together inspired me, and was the foundation for a lot of stuff I've done since. I go back to that constantly. And so these books are all about my journey into achieving these goals, and how I was successful in those. And I wanted to share that with people in the form of books. And so that's what I did, was I wrote that, and I've written several books since then. Once again, I'm so nitpicky, it takes me forever to edit a lot of these and publish them.
Sure.
But there's more books coming. So
right.
This series is complete as far as I know, but I've got other books available, and hopefully it'll be available later on down the line when I can get somebody else to do the work for me on the editing part, because I'm terrible. I nitpick things to death.
Sure. So with these books then, do you integrate that philosophy into like your guitar lessons then?
Yes, my goal setting and things like that have evolved since then. So I still use the SMART system. You know, if I need to narrow in or hone in on something, I can be specific about it. I can set a time to it. I've even gone back to my own books and read them again, so that I can kind of refresh my memory. But it seems like it's just something that's ever evolving depending on what kind of experience I have. Like, not all goals are the same. I use a lot of what I do nowadays is I just use a personal planner, so that I can write down what I want to do this week, or the 3 most important tasks to tackle. And I've kind of got a little bit of everything, like the bullet journal. That's a big craze right now. There's a whole philosophy behind bullet journaling and rapid logging your days and your to-do tasks and things like that. So I'm always picking from here and there to find out what works best for me.
Sure.
But yes, I absolutely refer back to these whenever I get stuck and where I need a little bit more inspiration to move forward on my goals.
Right. So how long have you been teaching guitar then?
I've been teaching on YouTube. I started YouTube in April of 2006. So it really kind of shot up in 2007 onward, but 2006, I was one of the first people to be on it. I've been teaching online since then. Private lessons, I was started in 2012. I was laid off from a job that I hated, which I was so glad to be laid off from, because that allowed me to get out there and start doing other things with guitar, which mainly was private lessons. So I started teaching from my apartment in 2012, and then was soon after hired on at a local private school for the arts called Peachtree Learning Center in Cookeville, Tennessee. And I taught there for about 8 years, and right when I ended was when the dreaded outbreak happened. It starts with a C and all that.
Sure.
That happened. And so I thought, well, this is a good time to kind of move on. I was getting felt a little dried out as a creative person, because I was putting all this creativeness into other people and really not finding it for myself, which is why the album took so long, which is why I couldn't finish the album. And so I wanted to focus more on performing and learning new songs and writing new songs and things like that. And I've been doing a little bit of that as much as I could. And then lo and behold, we found out we were pregnant. So we had a baby almost 2 years ago now. And so he derailed all this stuff.
They do that.
So yeah, he derailed everything. Was not ready for that, but love him to death. His name's DJ, and he's awesome. Upstairs with his grandparents right now. But yeah, it's been a blast getting to do all this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, trying to balance family and kids and jobs and guitar and bands, and it gets to be a lot for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. So that's been teaching online since 2007 and in person since about 2012.
Well, that's great. Well, I'm glad to have you aboard here at GuitarZoom. I'm very excited to have you.
It's great to be back.
Yeah, that's great.
My wife kept telling me, you got to do something. You got to get involved in something, because what you're doing, I'm not a salesperson. I like making things.
Right.
And so I'll make things and then forget about it and go on to the next thing. And then that thing will sit and linger and linger and linger. And I'll get a sale here and there. I won't really promote it. And it's like, it's done. She's like, you need to get involved with somebody that knows what they're doing. And now I feel like I'm there. I've got a team of people that I can work with and I can contribute to. And that motivates me. And so I'm glad to be on board something like that.
That's great. Cool. Well, just so everybody knows, of course, the GuitarZoom Academy is something that we have here at GuitarZoom.com that you can check out. And we've got a roster of teachers as amazing as Eric is. So, for instance, if you were interested in learning how to play blues, Eric could be a great guy. Or if you're looking at playing bluegrass, you had mentioned you play acoustic electric, but then did you say you play something else too besides six string?
Oh, I play some instruments, but I don't really. I'm not good enough to teach them. I mean, I can play bass, I can play a little piano.
Yeah, you don't play like mandolin or anything like that, do you?
Oh no. Yeah. No, it'd be nice to be able to play mandolin just for another bluegrass instrument. But, yeah.
I feel the same way about all those instruments. I like playing them, but there's no way I'm going to teach them. There's no way.
Yes, exactly. Guitar is my forte, and that's what I'll be teaching.
That's me too.
Yeah. That and writing, because I love to write too. So
right. Now you've got recording skills too. So
yes.
Yeah. Very cool. All right. Well, I'm not going to take any more of your time, Eric. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today and chatting with me and letting people know a little bit about yourself. So,
Steve, it's been great. Glad to be aboard.
Cool.
And thank you so much for having me on. Had a great time.
Absolutely. We'll talk to you again soon. Okay.
All right. See ya.
If you like our podcast and want to hear more, remember to press the subscribe button on the app that you listen to. By doing this, you help us a lot, and you'll be the first to know when we have new episodes ready for you to listen to. Is this podcast fun and useful? Then please give it a thumbs up and write about how much you like it. Is this podcast not what you thought it would be? Please let us know. This helps us to make our podcast better and helps more people who love guitar find it as well. So don't forget to subscribe, like, and tell us what you think.